Hello, thank you. And my name is Amanda Gutierrez, as you can see here. I'm going to make this presentation in English because Spanish is my first language, but I still in the learning process of French. So welcoming different languages. My interdisciplinary practices center into the sound walk as a research creation methodology that involves different approaches within the fieldwork of acoustic ecology, tools of digital media, psychogeography in the past, but right now I'm thinking through approaching these tools with more care, and most importantly, feminism. I did work in different collectives, ephemeral collectives, in order to arrive to the main point of my presentation. I'm going to speak briefly about the Brooklyn League of Women Walkers, which was a collective created in 2018 in Brooklyn with Wallace Johnson, Black artist and also walker. And we developed different approximations of intersectional feminism with mapping, walking, but also deriving. We interrogate the idea of the derive not only as a methodology, but also who can walk at night and who can approach the walk as a methodology, thinking and considering, interrogating also the earliest times of the derive and psychogeography approaches that happened in the late 60s and 70s. Within that question, I start working with a project of virtual reality, called Flâneuse la Caminante, which I constantly walk with 6 different women in different cities, all of them women of color, and we interrogated how the public space walk, how the public space approach or was approached by not only ourselves, but in terms of urban design, right? How urban designs welcomes or not welcomes the different able, but also race, gender, class, questions or different realities within the public space. And that's how I develop this virtual reality with 360 video camera. But later on, I felt that the VR is a elitist technology that implies a lot of resources to make it happen. From my perspective, it was making also VR was very difficult. So, and also showing this to people in a room was also very complicated if you don't have the access to this technology. Questioning as well, who are the developers of this technology? As Gross points out, yes, okay, we understand that this technology is created by certain gender, certain class, if not, it has a bias, but how we can create a counterpoint, a feminist approach through our own process of development and creative approaches within technology. So I expanded this Flâneuse la Caminante as a VR performance, and then as a headset stand, like an auto or like a self-stand headset, as opposed as carrying a computer and connecting everyone within that kind of complicated technology. So I understood that VR is a prompt to actually later on have an actual walk. So not only having the 360 walk and the headphones, but actually after that, organize a walk in the location where I was providing or I was showing this piece. And I thought that was even more interesting in terms of provoking more questions about the public space and gender. And then within that, I extracted the interviews of this VR project, and I started actually reenacting those interviews in other spaces while I was walking. Then I understood that I need another technology that actually overpass the screen, overpass the individual setting of being trapped into the virtual reality. And that's how I start walking and talking with another collective that is called or it was called, because it's not longer existing, Women's Walk the Walk. And right now, another feminist collective that I'm working currently with, Gabriela Cebes Sepúlveda, you might know some of you, and Freya Soviet Sinoviev, as well as Victoria Polti, Ana Mora, and Laura Balboa. And together we do this collective, Sono-Soro, which we are interrogating the potential use of technology within sound, but with an intersectional feminist perspective coming from the global South, not centering our thoughts and our reflections necessarily from a Western perspective, but understanding the new currents and the new producers that are also LGBTQ and women producers who are mostly in South America. Then from there, from this reflection that I was giving you for about the different technologies that I was approaching, I understood that augmented reality was an important and a more flexible platform for me that will allow me not only walking through the space, but designing sound design within the sonic landscape, within the urban environment that I was producing these walks. Also, I want to say that for me, augmented reality has an important and very past, right? It comes from a Vedic technology. It comes from a technology of war. First, being used by NASA, but then after, used as a weapon. So augmented reality and all the technologies, the most of technologies, have a past that I want to recognize that it was not necessarily as an artistic tool. This tool is also, augmented reality also uses, at least for sound, the use of tracking technologies, and therefore is also a surveillance technology. So I try to be critical about all these interrelationships within the politics, but also technology, not as a panacea, but as a platform that can reach further public and questions, but also I have to recognize that it comes from certain places that are very problematic. So I use Echoes as the main augmented reality sound platform, semi-free platform. And the first augmented reality that I did was based on Gloria Anzaldúa book, The New Mestiza, Borderlands, The New Mestiza, which for me speak a lot about my own relationship with the space, being a hybrid, being an immigrant from Mexico, living in the United States half of her life, and now understanding the space as well as part of this kind of like dual relationship. And after that, I did Walk with Collage Feministes Montréal and Collage Féminicize Montréal, a collective that you might be familiar with if you live in Montreal. They do tactical media, wheat-based graffiti art in this space. And I worked with them to develop, there is an example of the kind of work that they do, tactical work in the public space. And we work together and place this kind of collages in relationship of 5 interviews that I did to different feminist collectives. So actually the walk was in its center and between in the Myland, and I choose different paths that spoke in relationship of urbanism, taking the space as a urban tactic, as a feminist tactic as well, and also the relationship not only of gender, but taking the public space as a way of aiming freedom, as a way of aiming political enunciation. And this was made at the night. Some of them were made during the day, but the most important one that have a very important meaning was during the night, as well as the wheat-based working with them for 2 years, took me to this idea of walking collectively at night has a political potential, not only for not only as an entertainment or not only as learning about the city, but it can be actually an act of solidarity when it comes to in cities and spaces when you can feel threatened, or for individuals who have suffered or have experienced violence, gender violence in the public space. So how walking together, how walking collectively can create political solidarities, conversations, but also the experience of taking the public space, of announcing the public space as a space of democracy. And as part of this, I also did another walk. By the way, this is a walk in Chile, in Valparaíso. And I did an essay that is called The Experiencia Aural del Caminar en Colectiva. The aural experience of walking collectively is in Spanish, but you can read it in, you can translate it without AI, I guess, in English. But the thing is, I'm against, in this essay, I write against, or I have a critical view of the flonesse. And to me, that's a very important departing point. I'm criticizing libertarian models and forms coming also from Western perspectives, such as the flonesse and the flaneur, and thinking through how we can actually model, how we can create our own ways of approaching freedoms from another experience coming from the Global South, coming also from experiences that are centered within other epistemologies that are not only from the Western perspective. So I did a walk in Radio Insomnia. It was part of a bigger exhibition, and we walked with 25 immigrant women in La Chine Canal, and we broadcast this walk on radio. And this was a closed space. We did not invite other people, but it was a closed space for this collective. So we used the radio as a platform to voice, to create a dialogue, to create a safe space, to create also a space of belonging and collective thinking, walking from 12 a.m. till 2 a.m. in the morning. And from there is that I start thinking deeply about what it means walking at night collectively. And I did develop Sono-Soro walks, which is a reflection also from the piece that you see in the exhibition, Sono-Sororities, as this hub of different research creations coming from media technologies, but in my case, using or approaching the walk, and especially the walk through augmented reality as a platform to design and to create spaces of collective thinking. In my walks, the first one, for example, that I approach in Sono-Soro walks in Berlin, I walk, but I don't want to walk necessarily alone, listening a recording. For me, it's more important, how do we listen to the recording, how we do approach the soundscape, but create conversations in designated spaces where actually the public or the people who is part of the walk can have also a space of reflection, have a space of bouncing back their own situated in understanding of the space, of the history of the space, and their own experience. It doesn't have to be only a women or in this case, for me, it's important to approach this collectivity from a multiple mixed gender space. So the previous Sono-Soro walk that I did was in the City of Women Festival in Slovenia, in Ljubljana. And for this walk, I actually, which is what you were hearing if you join us after this at 5, the multiple voices of different collectives, but in that case in Slovenia and Ljubljana, I invited local people through a workshop with Elena Viserna to speak about their own experience at night. And I integrated into the walk. And we amplify the walk through speakers. That amplification was not only a medium, but also a gesture in an exercise of claiming the space, sonically speaking, through amplifying the voices of these different collectives, one from Bolivia, Cristina Herzberg from Palestine, and as well as Corazón de Robota from Chile, and the local participants who were part of this project. However, for Sono-Soro walk in here in Montreal, I decided not to do the augmented reality walk amplifying for first time, because I think I choose to go through the landmark that commemorates the event of 6th of December, and I think for that reason I need a little bit of quietness. I want to allow the listeners, when we traverse through this augmented reality design, to understand as well what it means to have a close and detailed perception of the voices and the landscapes that are congregated in this walk. But most importantly, when we walk, and I don't want to spoil it for the people who's going to do it at 5, but it's important to me to understand that the technology that I'm using, either though the amplification technology, the playback technology that I'm using, it has to speak about and with the intention, with the historical layers of the space, but also with the public that is going to be part of. In this case, I knew that it would be part of this colloquium, that it would be part of the historical aspect of going through that space of an event that is very significant for me. So I'm trying to layer down the different feminism and the different feminist approaches, having a dialogue through the sound and oral histories with this landmark. And that's why it's important to me, this specific augmented reality walk. And just to end, I'm going to, because we're on time, right? Yeah. I want to welcome any kind of comment if you want to join us, not knowing all this background information and why and how I use this technology. If you walk with me, with us in this group, to actually think about the differentiation between technologies, playback technologies, and how important it is when we approach soundscapes, how many layers of sound, how many layers, invisible layers in this previous sound walk. There was a huge interference of Wi-Fi in the FM transmitter was totally gone. And that was very interesting to see, to hear, to pronounce as well. I hear like a very good interpretation because it just happened during the Palestine soundscape that this interference was playing, which didn't allow us to hear it all. And someone who is here as well have a very brilliant interpretation, which was, well, this is a symbolic gesture of how voices are silenced most of the time. And sometimes these layers of technology, these amplifications of technology can kind of like show us or kind of like manifest through all around. And so this is the beauty, I guess, of using also sound waves and augmented reality. Well, thank you very much.